This aria is very, very, very hard. Just like right off the bat, this is a really difficult aria. Has, I think, like 18 high B flats. And the tessitura is very high as well. This is nutty. So Rockwell Blake is famous for, a lot of Rossini singers do not have this kind of volume. And the way that Rockwell Blake achieves this level of volume is brighter vowels and a very contracted area epiglottic sphincter, aka squealo, aka the singer's formant, which allows you to project over an orchestra, because that's it. When you contract your area epiglottic sphincter, you cover a frequency range that the orchestra does not occupy, which allows you to be heard over the orchestra. And the video quality here is abysmal. Let me see if there's anything above. There's nothing above 240p. That's absurd. This is really low quality. But I can tell you the mouth is very open. There are a lot of voice teachers in opera that don't think this is a good idea. And as far as I understand, Rockwell Blake didn't have as long a career as other people, but you never know what the reason for that is. I get a lot of students who ask about like chasing resonance. Like, should I always sing with mask resonance? Should I always like go after mask resonance? Is that how I know I'm doing it right? Not necessarily. There are a lot of different ways to achieve resonance, and really what mask resonance is it's just your nasal passages. You're hitting a frequency where your nasal passages are hitting a resonant frequency. So the size of your nostrils are very tiny, and so if you hit the right frequencies, your nostrils will kind of like feel tingly because they're responding to, in the same way, like if there's a glass and you blow into the glass or you hit the glass, there's a frequency that you hear, and then you can change the frequency by adding or subtracting water. The idea behind that is that a certain amount of space you excite the thing, or you know, make it move, and it'll give you the frequency. So mask resonance is really just sympathetic resonance that's happening in your nasal passages. You're hitting a frequency somewhere in your singing where that is the case. Oftentimes when you do that and you pursue that, you do get a lot of this like really bright sound. It's nice though. Rockwell Blake doesn't get enough credit for his nuance. That was a really wonderful phrase. He's kind of stubborn and like he won't give up the resonance at in this part of the range, it's nice that we have the notes in front of us. So G natural for tenors is a very, very tricky thing. This is called the passaggio in classical singing, and it's just the part of the break where it's really hard to be elegant. So if I do, what is the notes? Right, I have to kind of make that vowel a lot more neutral, because if I don't, this happens. And there's nothing wrong with that note, but it's just all of a sudden it pops. And oftentimes in opera, you want these notes to not sound like they are your high notes. You want these notes to tie off and be a part of the phrase. And so aesthetically, what we do in opera is we round off the notes. And actually, you can actually find this a lot in neo-soul. This is kind of the thing that's happening in neo-soul, SZA does this all the time. You just dome your soft palate a little bit, and you round out the vowel a little bit. Pavarotti has a video on YouTube where he says that this alone takes 10 years. And that's about how long it took me to learn this. It's a subtle thing, but man, does it take a long time to kind of get used to it. So if you're not going to use different vowels to achieve a quieter dynamic, you have to have other options. And right, we've established that Rockwell Blake doesn't like to compromise on resonance. So that means he's not going to change vowels and the types of vowels that he's using. He wants maximum resonance in the vowels. So you have to find another way to do pianissimo. And so what he's doing here is he's raising his larynx and he's not using as much tilt, thyroid tilt. So, let's see what the notes are. This is difficult. So ordinarily you would do like with a vowel change. Languid, right? Like a little bit of a vowel change. What he's doing is raising his larynx and not tilting as much. And this is actually really hard. I might screw this up because it has a tendency to go flat or like askew a little bit. It's a very difficult thing to navigate. Languid pero. And so I'm doing both vowel and the thing, he's not sacrificing the vowel. The vowel's very bright. What makes this difficult is you can't use a lot of air. And so in this weird, like almost oxymoronic way, you have to be very energetic and the torso has to be suspended. Your intercostal muscles have to expand your rib cage. You have to be very loose in the torso. Your posture has to be excellent. The reason why this is necessary is because if you compress the torso in any capacity, you're exhaling too much air. All of a sudden your tongue goes back. All of a sudden the vowel changes. All of a sudden you're flat. All of a sudden you're not pianissimo. It's not good. So this, in a weird way, requires a lot more control and nuance. And I think in opera, people poo-poo on a high larynx, but this is not as easy as people like to think it is. It's very hard. Part of the head tilting up also allows the larynx to go up a little bit more too. These B flats are almost punitive. So when you go up here, he has actually a lot of control, and it's interesting. He's kind of almost covering this B flat here, and this is something that like a lot of people don't do, because the second you try and cover a B flat, basically A natural and up for tenors, depending on the type of tenor. A natural and up, usually you want brighter vowels because it's just hard. But there are some people who do like what's called an umlaut. And when you go up there with an it will get this more neutral sound instead of a like. So you hear that vowel's actually If you try to round out a vowel that high and you don't dome your soft palate to let some air through your nostrils, it's not going to go well for you. You're going to go flat. Bright vowels are so necessary on top, but if you have them overly bright, they can be strident. And just like we discussed with the G natural before, the phrasing will become inelegant. And so what he's doing is he's doing a schwa, or more of an umlaut. And that means the soft palates down, which means near air through the nostrils to relieve some of the breath pressure, which you need less air to go higher. Anyway. That's wonderful phrasing. That's so good. Here, let's go to where that happens. What makes this hard is, so he's doing a gradual crescendo. He's getting louder through the phrase. But what makes this very difficult is you cannot go louder. You can't use more breath pressure than you can use on your A flat in this instance. And this is true anytime you're singing and you have a note in the phrase that goes up. You can't do it louder than you can do this A flat. You can't put more air pressure than you can on your max high note in the phrase. And so this has to keep in mind, anytime you have this kind of a phrasing, you have to keep the higher note in mind. What is it? El più... What is the other words? El più crudele tormento. Right? You have to keep that in mind, and his phrasing is elegant there, and way smoother of a transition in the crescendo than I did. And then my vowels kind of definitely popped in a weird way there. Whereas when he goes to that A flat, it's less of an abrasive and an abrupt pop. So the vowels also have something to do here. The other thing is that his prolonged stay on that nasal continue at the end. Tormento, right? He's using that N to slide up there. And that's actually really smart because it allows you to have a little bit more forgiveness than just popping up there like I tried to do. He's so aware. This is Heifetz, probably the best violin player to certainly ever be recorded, but maybe ever in existence. He was asked a question, how are you so on pitch? And he said, I'm not. I just fix it as I go. And this is what Heifetz meant by that. Am I right? Yeah. This is an area of the range that can go flat pretty quick. And he is flat, but he's fixing it all the while, so it doesn't sound flat. See how he fixes it? No singer is perfect. It's how you work it. Here we go with the hard stuff. It's interesting how he does that C. Oh, man, that's so brutal. That's so hard. When you do very fast runs, the fold's thin, and that's very advantageous to getting to high notes, but make no mistake, this is still brutal. When Rossini wrote music, he did not want people singing full voice and the highs. He actually very much envisioned tenors using like falsetto, reinforced falsetto. In fact, the first time he heard anybody hit a full high C, in one of his operas, he said it sounded like a snake getting its head chopped off or something to that effect. He really didn't like it. So that's why Rossini wrote stuff like this. But in modern opera, if you ever used falsetto, people would think terribly of you for whatever reason. There are plenty of people who use voix mi, which is basically falsetto. It's fine, and the orchestration takes into account that. But, you know, with modern aesthetics, if you do that, like, people would like have a conniption. That's still really well good. He's given a lot of juice, a lot of volume there. I think he's got the continuo, right? Is it here? Now he's doing it differently than he did in the first part of it, where the first part of it is very delicate, like languir per una bella. You want that delicacy. But what he's doing right here, because this is the more exciting part, he stopped doing those, we talked about this, the B flat where he did the umlaut. He's not doing that anymore. He wants those high notes to pop because this is the more energetic part of the song. Just straight bang. This is a ball buster of an aria. It is so brutal. This is just, this tessitura, which is the average place that the notes sit, is just so high. This is exhausting. Everything has to be so clean to get through this, and he does. Every time I go to the singer subreddit, or anytime I hear like people discuss their range on the internet, like they'll be like, oh, I can sing from this note to this note, and it's like a really wide range. And I know when anybody types that, what they're talking about is like, I can hit this note, ha, ha, right? And they honk it out, and it's flat, and it's terrible. I don't want to hear that you can hit a note until you can sustain it on every single vowel. Because that's when you can live on the note. And if you can't live on the note, it's going to show, it's going to sound, you're going to hide from it. And so even if like, he's been hitting B flats all day up to this point. He's been hitting every single B flat. And the reason why all of them have sounded good is because he can do this. He's living. He's just living up there. He's cool. And sorry, more on this covering. This is on the fourth. So da dum da da. Because we're in 4/4, the emphasis, we're in classical music, so sometimes in pop music 2 and 4 get the emphasis, in jazz 2 and 4 get the emphasis. In classical music 1 and 3 and 4/4 gets the emphasis. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So when you have this phrase, mezzo alla pe, right, you want to give that 1 the emphasis. And so the way he does that is by doing the umlaut stuff we talked about, where la is modified to a la. No, I can't. Forget it. I'm not warmed up. But, you know, it's a very high note. And that P in the change in the vowel, give that emphasis on the 1 beat. Same thing. I mean, and listen, Rossini was a smart cookie, right? He knew how to write for the voice. Look at those vowels. So bad, right? It takes care of itself. Composers who really understand the voice did this. Verdi did a lot of it too. Verdi was really good about vowels. God, that's so precise. Whew. So, you know, oftentimes with runs, you know, you get a lot of, like, particularly in Handel, like, right, like these little turns and stuff like that. Obviously that's not time, but like, it's when you get to these, like, right? Like, that's just an outlined chord. These are arpeggios. And this is difficult to do that quickly and get everything just precise. That's just so hard. Do 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 do. Oh man, forget it. I can't do it. I'd have to sit here and like practice it a bunch. It's just so hard to leap by third consistently and be this on pitch. And this is more of him respecting the time signature. Che sempre in amore. Right, like he's leaning into the one, the first beat, and then letting it go. That's high F. Oh, it's high D. This is particular. This is definitely, so this is where if anybody's going to do something impressive in this aria, I mean, it's already insane. But like, you know, people, Lawrence Brownlee would hit like a high F here. People hit IDs or whatever, and they just do the craziest stuff. But what really gets me going is the fact that he can do that and get out of it. Because that's what's hard, is connecting everything. Because these are such extreme parts of the range, and the vowels end up being very extreme. So tying it all back in together, and it's hard enough to hit the note. It's also very difficult to tie it back into the phrase. And then the consonant there. That's rough. To have to close your mouth, to have to adjust. It's so hard to hit these notes. And by the time you get there, you have to have your open throat, you have to have your bright vowel, you have to do everything right. And then he actually bothers to hit the consonant, which is so hard because you have to change everything just to close everything up to hit the consonant. And then if you punch the consonant too hard, you're going to go flat. And he does a little bit, but he fixes it because ultimately to hit a consonant, you got to have a puff of air. And anytime you have a puff of air that's a little too excessive in this part of the range, you're going to go flat. It's too much. But he just corrects it like that. It's brilliant. See how he's like, bah, and then he fixes it like it's nothing. This is so brutal. It's so hard. flat. So this part of it, where he goes a little, it's not a choice that I would make, but I respect the choice. So he slows it down. To me, I just don't, I like it's the last part of the aria. I would personally want it to be epic. In amor si serva in amor si serva. You know, I wouldn't slow down here, and I wouldn't change the dynamic. But I like it. I like that he did that. You know, when you've been singing the same repertoire for centuries as a culture, performance practice does get kind of stale, and opera singers are usually put into a little bit of a box. People want what they want, and if you don't give them that traditional same old crap, they get angry with you. So the fact that he did that, I respect it, because probably someone was in the crowd like, I never, because, you know. Yeah, Rockwell Blake. Crazy.